On today's show, machines are making you food. Would you eat a burger? How much would you pay for it if it's made by a robot?
$3. I'm a stingy bastard.
See, I think it's gonna go in a cycle. So first they're gonna cost more than traditional burgers because of no novelty.
No, I'm not asking what you think, Max. How much would you pay? Being Max's friend for years, I will tell you he does not pay. He forgets his wallet. He's one of those people.
No surprise there. Ben.
No, nothing more than a $5.
Do I get a pickle?
You get 2 pickles.
2 pickles. All right, I'm upping from $3 to $6.
Welcome to the AI Business Podcast, episode 28. Thanks for listening. I'm Tian, the video producer of Informa Tech. Joining me, as always, is the man who's got an axe just to skin.
No, it's an axe. It's a skinning and chopping axe. It's a bushcraft hand axe.
And this is our hunter of East Sussex, Sebastian Moss.
Hello.
Also, deputy editor of DCD.
Bring me your skin. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. And of course, our global editor, Max Molex.
Hello there. It's been one hell of a week. You never lose your internet connection. It sucks.
So for those wondering, that's why we file our episode 27 really late, and I had to figure out why Max couldn't file it on time. So blame Sky?
It's no. It's basically I'm expecting a discount because that's how it works in this country. They give you a couple of quid off and everybody's happy.
Well, all I'm thinking about is the Monty Python thing on a dead parrot. No? Monty Python? John Cleese?
Did you know his real name is John Cheese?
And of course, the man who just provided us with a John Cleese trivia. He's our reporter, Ben Wadecki.
Hello, everyone.
How's the Pikachu doing? What has the Pikachu seen in the last week that you want to share with us?
Seen absolutely nothing.
How long have you had the Pikachu? I guess that's a fair question.
That's from when I was a kid. My parents brought it up last year or so to say, here you go, instead of chucking it out. And it hopefully will be worth something. Probably not.
We covered food service robot, namely in our famous episode, Burger, Chips, and Virtual Girlfriend. And boy, we used to cover a lot of topics in one single episode. And I remember that episode was very difficult to cut because we covered so much. But I think we had a very interesting conversation about Flippy, the burger flipping robots. It's in the name, and at the time it was just a kind of a teaser. We're like, oh, this could be happening, and there's a deal, and this is July of 2020, and we're like, okay, that's kind of cool. And you know, flash forward to where we are now. It's like, okay, it looks like this industry is coming along, and now there's robots making paellas, there's robot making everything. So we thought it would be good to talk about just the overall state of our robotic world, the state of robots in our lives. And to kick things off, we will start with the very friendly Boston Dynamic dog, Spot.
Yes. Renamed Digidog by the New York Police Department and used for a couple of months. It caused a bit of a controversy really because NYPD didn't tell anybody that they were doing it. They're essentially, there was no oversight. They just leased the robot and started using it and and people found out because people started capturing it on the streets of New York.
Well, capturing it on footage, not capturing it with a net, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Right. It's just people screaming like, what is that? I've never seen anything like it.
And you may be going, oh, but did they technically have to tell people, is this a PR thing? Since last year, they've legally had to disclose surveillance devices, robots, any of those kinds of things under a city council bill. They did not. And what is funny, in a boring dystopia way, is that when lawmakers started asking them about the fact that they did not follow law and didn't disclose it, that was when they quietly shelved the project.
And the funny thing is, Blasio was like, good, I'm glad we got rid of it. It was like, you're the mayor, come on.
He didn't say anything while it was going on. He was stumm, didn't say a word. Then when it was over, when there was a clear public opinion against it, then he said, I'm glad the Digidog is dead.
I'm glad the Digidog was put down.
Yeah.
Which is a very violent way to say it.
let's talk about the actual use cases, because ultimately the dog is being used to scope out a potential crime scene. When a call is made, the police need to assess the situation, whether putting actual body on the ground.
It was used in a few cases, and the difficulty here is we're only hearing about the cases either directly from the police or by a profile in ABC7. And I'm not going to say that, maybe the reporter had some parking tickets they needed to be gone away, but it's an incredibly friendly profile.
I mean, those tow tickets are expensive. So
I know, right? So yeah, if you just write a nice article about their robot and then you get to do a free murder, it's tempting. So they say, yeah, it was really useful. It was used in a couple of hostage situations. In one situation, the hostage people said, we want some food. And rather than sending like a guy in there who could get shot and become a hostage, strap some food to a robot, send it in there, makes sense. A different hostage situation, they got a call about two guys that pretended to be plumbers, held two men hostage, but by the time they got there with the robot, there was no one there, so kind of like non-event, but would have been useful rather than sticking your head around the corner. But when it started getting kind of more on people's radar and upsetting people, they just used it during like a public housing building arrest. And it's just a normal arrest. We don't know the exact incident, but like a non-violent, not a huge deal arrest. And there's just a robot dog there watching everyone and filming everyone and recording faces.
I kind of see it making a comeback. They can just say, hey, we're making an actual use cases. We're going through the proper channels, trying to bring, maybe not Digidog, but some form of robot that surveys the scene before the police arrive. Do you think that's possible?
I mean, the police already, obviously different police forces have different tools, but NYPD and similarly sized police forces already have robots. They have bomb disposal robots. Those make sense. You don't want to stick your hand into a package so you don't know what's going on there. So you send usually like an iRobot, recently spun off to like Company 6. They have drones increasingly, but again, very limited, but the idea would be you can have some level of surveillance with those. What I think people were particularly scared about with the Digidog is the attachment. So you could put a weapon on it, a taser, a gun, who knows what. And it also, when you lose that human interaction between a police officer and you say, look, you arrest me because of A, B, and C, but actually this happened. Ideally,
like they listen.
I know. But ideally that should exist, and that is completely lost if you're...
Ideally, it would not confuse a taser with a gun.
Well,
There's no reason why, hypothetically, someone controlling this Digidog with a weapon on it could go, oops, I shot someone, and actually they clearly meant what they were doing.
Yes,
Right.
and we have seen that it's technically possible because people did strap a paintball gun to a spot before for another project and made people control it remotely and shot up as sort of like a specially created gallery with some art in it, like proving that yes, you can arm these things and they will shoot, while controlled remotely. It was a nice kind of test case.
If they say somewhat low tech, like a drone, like a single usage, they can make a comeback. But I think once they start to carry anything, any weapon, or once they start to serve like 2 or 3 functions, it's a whole nother conversation. And the NYPD, by the way, it's a force that's 36,000 officers strong with 19,000 civilian employees.
like an army, they have incredible technology. It's not just the Digidog. The Digidog is something that obviously captures people's imagination because it is this visceral Robocop dog. But they have stingrays, which allow you to locate and track cell phones. They have X-ray vans, which can see through cars, see through walls. They have deep surveillance systems. They have a domain awareness system that scans license plates, Metro card swipes.
Various eyes in the sky, right? Didn't they have drones just circling the town for sort of like weeks and months?
Yeah, I think one of our earlier episodes we spoke about Whammy, where you just film an entire city from above and then you can kind of play it back at a later stage. I enjoyed Robocop. It's a very good movie. But I would not want Robocop on the streets.
The reason we're bringing this up is because that's a very cautionary tale of a robot being used in a way that people don't want. And it's very clear people don't want it. So it was carefully, quietly introduced, and it was really loudly put down, literally. And now here we are. But the idea is we can talk about robots being used in much friendlier manner, that is
Taking our job.
The kitchen.
Yeah.
Taking our job in the kitchen, so making our college students even harder to pay for their student loans. As Max would say, he had a really good job in McDonald's and he loves it. It gave him a purpose to live until he found AI business. So let's talk about the state of food service robot, the robots that are making our food, because we report on Flippy, as we mentioned a while ago, and now Flippy is kind of having having a little moment, right?
Yes, so Ben actually talked to the president of Miso Robotics, responsible for Flippy, and he talked a little bit to AI Business about the expansion plans and basically what's next for the burger flipping robot.
Yeah, so Buck, I spoke with Buck Jordan, president and chair of Miso, and I
did not know those.
It's like one of those Buck or Chuck, one of those American names. So basically, we were talking about the release of their new software program called Cook Right, which basically is kind of it automates menial tasks and aids and augments with kitchen processes, cooking, flipping, frying, etc. But I spoke with him kind of about the wider expansion of this product, and he was saying about how they're looking very soon. He said that they're looking to move the Flippy robot into new geographical markets, and the movement would be based on consumer diets and customer demands, which I think is really interesting because obviously some countries fry more than others.
One interesting thing about Miso is its products are available as a service now, and it's a real service that you can actually start buying. So if it sounds interesting to you, if you want to automate your kitchen, you can do that right now. And there's two components, because one is the robot arms, but Miso does manufacture robot arms. Those are pretty standard, like you've seen those things everywhere. What the selling point here is the software and cameras, because when you buy the software, it comes with a camera or multiple cameras, and the cameras are processing sort of like they have computer vision models on them, and they can start doing very, very interesting things like tracking your burgers, seeing for how long the things need to be fried based on different sort of areas of the grill, like notifying the stuff when they need to do certain things. All of that is included.
Yeah, I mean it's a Fanuc LR Mate 200 ID robot arm, if you want to buy one for yourself and make your own chef. And the idea is they don't sell you the robot arm, they don't sell you the technology, they rent it to you, akin to a salary. So it's $30,000 for the robot, $15,000 per year for this constant salary. Although if they do a big deal like they did with White Castle, it's much less. And it uses QR codes for simple things. So the stuff around, so where the fry tray is, or where the burgers are stored in the freezer, and then where it uses AI is on the grill, like Max was saying, where it will watch where the burger, how it cooks. But even then, it doesn't need to be that extreme. Once someone's told it how long, once someone said, 3 minutes this side, flip, 3 minutes that side, ting. That's all it really needs, and the vision can just keep an eye out to make sure nothing extreme goes wrong. But I mean, why it works for fast food is fast food robotized cooking before robots were invented. It was all about breaking it down into menial, little, simple tasks so that you could hire anybody and then pay them dirt poor wages.
Anything.
Because then you can say, look, you're not a specialized worker. I can replace you with another.
I'm getting a sense that this is an overseer, it's software, it's cameras. So are we talking about, are they going for, I'm sure they would not stop there, right? They would not stop at Flippy. They would say, hey, why don't we automate the entire fast food restaurant experience, kitchen,
so I spoke to him about this, and we kind of talked about the concept of the they took our jobs kind of thing. I said to him that, from the research that I found using figures from Indeed, the average crew member who would flip a burger, fry some chips, or fries, as you call them, earns just $16 an hour. That's dollars, which is 12% below the national average. Now, Buck did say that this is, White Castle is a very Midwestern range restaurant, so it's not too wide across the US like a McDonald's or maybe a Burger King. But we kind of talked about like where this could be applied elsewhere, and Buck was really kind of talkative regards to using this in a more hygienic and safety kind of fashion, because obviously a lot of these fast food restaurants are providing delivery content, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eat, that kind of thing. And we were kind of talking about how actually something like this could potentially make it safer because less people are likely to come into contact with your food, which I found really interesting as someone who does eat fast food during a pandemic, which is still crazy in itself that we can do this during all what's going on.
So I just did the sums, and it'd be $3 an hour if you ran this thing pretty much consistently. And you're never going to be able to pay an employee that, as much as they love to kind of cut salaries and use tips as a way to lower costs of employees.
Think about night shifts as well, because night shifts are definitely more expensive, and 24-hour McDonald's is slowly it became a part of the London fabric of life, and I'm enjoying it so much.
Oh, for sure. Because sometimes, not to give away that I go to McDonald's fairly often, I would say once every other week I will go. And I'll be upset because they will mess up my coffee. I'm like, that's not the same as the week before. Why would you put so much milk? Why would you put so much ice? That goes the same thing with sandwich. Sometimes the sandwich is like not make right. So I only go for breakfast because it's simple. There's no trick. And sometimes I see the breakfast sandwich. I'm like, sometimes it's all very sloppily made. And I feel like if I'm going for exactly the same as Seb was saying, I'm just going for that one thing that I know exactly what I want. It's like a Marvel movie. I don't want any surprises. I want the good guy to win. Just give it to me. Don't try to be creative with my breakfast sandwich, with my McMuffin. Just give it to me. And if a robot can promise that process, I'm happy.
I mean, it's interesting about coffee, because coffee is something that we start getting a grey area of when does a machine start becoming a robot? Because most of a coffee in a especially like a McDonald's type coffee is created by a machine. It's made by a machine. A dishwasher, is that a robot? No. We can't just say robots are going to make this better, robots are going to make it consistent. They're going to have issues. We don't know how a Flippy robot is going to react 2 years into being covered in grease in a restaurant where they haven't kept the right heat standards. They've left the door open too long and moisture has gotten into the machine.
Or the computer vision system just didn't notice that the burger is full of ball bearings, something that a person would pick up, and it's just like, looks legit.
So machines aren't the be-all, end-all perfect case. I mean, at least for a long time, it's going to be this hybrid. So it's not going to be going to a shop and there's just a kiosk that you press what you want, or you use your phone to say what you want, and ding, out comes Robo Meal. There's going to have to be humans involved.
Yes, but I will tell you another reason for this, because like the problem these guys are going to run into are the same problem that the warehouse automation guys are running into at the moment. Robots can do many things, but there's gaps. There's gaps in terms of picking, for example, in warehouses. Like moving boxes around, yes, we can do that. Pallets around, yes, but when we come to the scale of the item itself, it needs human touch. It's the same when you go to the burgers. So while a machine can cook a burger, taking it out of the machine, packaging it, maybe packaging can be automated as well, but there will still always be a role for the human for many years to come, just because, well, it's nearly impossible at the moment to do really complex things with robotics. It's
The thing I wanted to pick up on is we're talking a lot about frying the kind of fast foods, McDonald's, Burger King, KFC was another one that we talked about extensively. Do we see this as being for smaller family-owned restaurants? I don't think so, because the kind of small hometown restaurants you find in like Akron, Ohio, or like outside Charlotte, North Carolina, these small community restaurants that you go to once, maybe twice a week as a family, I think it doesn't have that personal touch to it. Even if you're just using it in the kitchen, I think it would be off-putting for a lot of communities and smaller, independent-owned restaurants.
Again, if you go to McDonald's, or even White Castle for that matter, you get the same. You're going for the same experience. You're not looking for anything fancy. I'm not looking for a human connection. I want to go in and out as quickly as possible, right? But if I want a night out, I'll go to a nice restaurant, and then I find I'll deal with the waiter's annoying intrusion of like, do you want more water, or like, can I offer you any dessert every 5 minutes? Fine, I'll deal with that.
Wow, such a stressful life you lead.
But
yes, that's correct.
When I go out with my bankers and my prosecutors,
that's a choice on dining experience.
Sir, you're done with your caviar. Can't you see I'm eating my caviar?
The second home dinner club.
The idea is that this is serving a very specific crowd. It's what Max was saying, the overnight crowd. The drunk people waking up at 4 a.m, they're hungover, they need to go somewhere, and the last thing they need is too much ketchup on their sandwich. I don't know, I'm just hypothetically speaking. I've never got drunk. But I'm saying like it's serving a very specific crowd, and it will never, I think some of the conversation is I don't think it will ever replace all the human in the restaurant ever. And I think for the most part there will be a lot of restaurants that's still operated by mostly human, and that's fine. And I want them to stay that way. And similar to Digidog, if they have just one purpose, if we keep limiting them to very specific, a fail-safe scenario, it will help, at least help with the workplace injury and whatever. And now with the wage, that's a whole nother conversation. But I think it helps the restaurant runs better, and the family can argue and say, hey, if we want to expand our family business, we have these robots. It actually help us to not hire this many people, that we can scale up, we can make more burgers and serve more customers. It's a win-win situation, somewhat.
And when we talk about win-win, it's win-win potentially from the customer side, because hopefully cheaper prices, and I'm a germaphobe, I don't like people touching my things, and potentially easily a win from the company side, because they don't have to pay as many people and employ them. From a labor market perspective, it's a terrifying thing, because we do need lower skilled jobs. We need something for either people with less education, or younger people, or immigrants, where it's a job where they can take it. They don't have to have a super specialized degree or a super specialized thing. We're losing the number of jobs, potential types of jobs that fit that criteria, because robots would take those ones first.
Then we're in the territory of what constitutes as lower level job and entry level jobs, but because those things can change to something else potentially, no?
AID journalist. Who knows?
we are still hiring.
We're looking at one right now.
The problem is we've never had a labor transition like this. We've usually,
right,
either it's just been new cycles of farmers moving to cities and so on, and then when we had the Industrial Revolution, it was, yes, job types disappeared, but jobs were still required to run the new machines that took out. So instead of having hundreds of people sewing, it would be some massive loom, but you needed people running the loom, little children sticking their hands in, losing fingers, fixing the loom. If we get to the point where it's AI doing it themselves, the AI becomes the consciousness in its very limited form for the work, but it's not human, so it's not an actual job. It's not paying income tax. It's just removing a job from existence.
There's plenty of people who will tell you that, all you need to do is reskill, all you need to re-specialize and learn new skills, and you're going to be fine. But yeah, we kind of don't subscribe to that, because the truth is, yes, these jobs are going to disappear out of existence, and new jobs are not coming as fast. And yeah, I propose calling it the trucker's dilemma. On one hand, these are low-quality jobs that if we can liberate people from doing those, if we had something better for them to do, that would be fantastic. On the other hand, well, we don't really. Yeah. So basically the truckers and the burger flippers, yes, they make sacrifices. Yes, they're paid very, very low wages, but it's a lifeline. What happens when that lifeline is gone? And I, for one, don't subscribe to this idea that in the future we're all going to be creators and everybody will be an artist, yeah. and we're all going to survive on sustaining ourselves with creativity.
Most people aren't creative. Most people cannot code. We don't need that many coders. We've got enough apps. That's it. We've got enough. We don't need another app.
Stop making apps.
Not even one more, but good.
I agree. And I definitely don't think we need more tech bros. My trucker friends, who's a friend of mine, who's my good friend's father, got in a terrible car accident, and he was in hospital for days. So that's a whole nother conversation. But I do think that eventually these things are, since the Industrial Revolution, humans are just, the whole point of us progressing is that there's more and more time for human being. We no longer have to grow crops and work for a living. We don't have to labor. We don't have to drag food to the market every season, right? There's we are slowly inventing tools, and that's just the trend we're going. Not that I think that entry-level jobs should disappear and people need to retrain themselves to become more useful. But I think, isn't that just part of the process?
No, I think one of my concerns is we have been taught and tell ourselves that the reason why we have weekends, why we have breaks, is because of our increased productivity as an advancement of technology in society. It was union and labor movements that gave us those things. And when you make it so that robots are doing these jobs, then the concept of a union, the concept of a strike breaks down, and you no longer have that pressure to say, no, we need weekends, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of leisure. Once that's gone, we're in real trouble.
I mean, yeah, it starts with losing the right to negotiate your salary across the entire industry, because whenever you bring this question to the table, they're going to say, oh, you want to be replaced by a robot, I hear.
But I'm just arguing that, not even talking about labor laws, but I'm just talking about the idea of machine taking things away from us that we no longer have to do, that things we used to be a part of our lives that we no longer having to do them. there's not an argument that what we're gonna do with all the free time. It's just like, well, we used to do a lot of other things we don't need to do now, and we never look back really, right?
Well, so I mean, that's the dream. The dream is every menial, kind of unnecessary, repetitive task that no average person would enjoy working for, but has to do just to make a living, such as this podcast, gets automated out, right? But the reality is, that's not Miso Robotics' priority, and nor should it be. They're just a company, they're selling a product. What you need is real legislation that says, okay, these are the trends that we can all see happening. They've been happening for a long time. It'll still take many, many years for them to really hit and make a profound impact on the US labor force. How about we start working on legislation?
I think that this conversation about the future of work, it will never stop, and it will continue until actually, we will actually see robots coming into the workplace, and depending on what happens then, we're gonna find out whether we're all getting replaced or we're all gonna be endless creators. So yeah, we're just gonna continue following it. I propose calling it the trucker's dilemma. This question whether we actually need low quality jobs. And I'm sorry to your trucker friends. I apologize.
The trucker
No,
paradox.
but I think up until his accident, I just realized maybe you're right. Maybe his friend nearly died. That's not him. His friend, he got in an accident, but his friend got in an accident a couple years prior, and devastated the whole family, and just made me realize, oh, I guess that makes sense. They're ultimately, they have self-driving trucks first before self-driving cars, because why don't we just figure that out? I would kill for a robot that filed the podcast on time every Monday and not subject to internet,
This is exactly the kind of creative work.
I just wrote a paper on this for my master's degree about AI replacing journalists, and it's probably, it won't replace us, it'll augment us.
Yeah.
But then it's fine for us to sit here and say, oh, it's fine for us. But in the trucker paradox, I completely agree. There is, but I will just say that, thank you to Buck for speaking to us. It was an insightful, and it's led to this kind of conversation, and obviously wider conversations generally. But I think the idea of, okay, if it helps bring food quicker, okay, it's going to work, it's going to be good. I'd be interested to see a restaurant, like Seb said, that was completely automated. You have those glass kind of panels, like a zoo, or when you go to Domino's, when they do it.
Zoos, the animals make food for you. I want to go to that zoo.
Have you been to Bristol Zoo? But I think the novelty, there will be a novelty. There will be people who want to go to these places for that. But I don't think it's going to be too big of a fanfare until people actually start to be replaced.
I want to leave you with my last idea on the Digidog. So yes, Seb, you suggested that the best way to fight it, to disable it, is with a blanket, but a blanket doesn't really kill the Digidog. It just kind of takes it out of commission. So I am looking forward to the return of Retiarius. That Roman gladiator with a spear and a net, because you use a net to disable the dog and you stab it to death with a spear. You need that second element. So yeah, I see those people, on the streets of London and New York in some point in the future.
So Tien, where can people find you?
I'm trying to get into Twitter again, and you
just said last episode I'm not on Twitter anymore. Make your mind up.
Sometimes on Twitter, trying to make a comeback. Get it? Etienne Shifu. And sometimes on LinkedIn. So you can also find me there. Also sharing our podcast is Ben Wadecki. And thank you for sharing our podcast. And by the way, how's your dad liking the podcast so far?
Yeah, he likes it. He says he always says he doesn't understand most of it, but then neither do I, so it's so good. You can find me on Twitter, Ben Wadecki, Wodecki. I'm also on LinkedIn. Instagram, maybe. I don't know. I don't really use it.
Stop it. You're on Instagram all the time. That's a lie.
You can find Tianfu on Instagram. If you really like pictures of some pretty decent cuisine.
But so you can't find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter at Seb Moss, and you can also find me on donaldjtrump.com/desk, where I'm moonlighting as the president.
That blog is hilarious. I'm sorry. I've been on it all morning, just scrolling.
That's my new social media hub. So you can
blogger.com.